Against the backdrop of warming relations between Russia and the United States, the presidential administration recommended that propaganda media not praise personally American President Donald Trump, but create an image of a man who had the wisdom to respond to Russia's outstretched hand, several sources in pro-government media and a source close to the Kremlin told Verstka. In case the negotiations do not lead to anything, we can always say, "We tried, we did everything," one of the publication sources explained. According to him, any contacts between the teams of Russian President Vladimir Putin and Trump must be presented in a positive context. And we must emphasize in every possible way that the contacts are not with some abstract Americans, but with Trump's team. A man who was oppressed in every possible way both at home and in Europe. Like, they put pressure on us, they put pressure on him, but we turned out to be stronger, the source explained to Verstka. An employee of a major state media outlet described the new information policy as follows: "We are not making promises about the end of the SVO, we are not naming deadlines. The main thing is that they made contact, and we are ready to listen." One of the employees of the state television channel noted that there were no instructions to force anything, but the presidential administration demanded that Trump be balanced, with statements from the Russian side. "It looks like a minefield, do not overpraise, do not underpraise. Therefore, we are switching to a simple information processing mode. To be on the safe side," added the head of one pro-government media outlet. Trump had previously puzzled the Kremlin with his statements on Ukraine and his harsh tone toward Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenski, Bloomberg sources said. According to them, Trump's statements exceeded all expectations of Moscow, which sought to impose its view of the Russian-Ukrainian war on the United States. At the same time, Russia's top leadership is wary of a possible trap or unexpected turns from the American administration, which has so far demonstrated a willingness to make concessions. Nevertheless, the Kremlin intends to use this situation to extract maximum benefit for Russia from any deal to end the war, Bloomberg's source said. Having promised to end the war in 24 hours, Trump held telephone talks with Putin 3 weeks after his inauguration, and a week later, Russian and American delegations met in Saudi Arabia without Ukraine. Following the talks, it was decided to restore the work of embassies and begin consultations on mutual irritants, and U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced the possibility of easing sanctions depending on Moscow's position. Trump himself, meanwhile, switched to almost verbatim repetition of the Kremlin propaganda narratives. He accused Zelensky of starting the war himself and called him a dictator without elections, with a rating of 4%. Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan stressed Thursday that his country cannot be excluded from possible future European defense structures. A security architecture approach that leaves out a military force like Turkey would not be very realistic, Fidan said during a joint news conference with his Albanian counterpart in Ankara. According to Associated Press, the comments comes as European countries grapple with the challenge of ending their reliance on the United States to provide security. In recent weeks, senior officials from President Donald Trump administration have made clear that U.S. priorities lie elsewhere, in Asia and along America's southern border, and that Europe should take care of itself, including Ukraine. Turkey has the second largest military force in NATO, following the United States.
Avrupa güvenlik mimarisi eğer yeniden oluşacaksa bunun tabii ki Türkiye'siz olması mümkün değil. Yani Türkiye'yi dışarıda bırakan, Türkiye gibi bir askeri gücü dışarıda bırakan bir güvenlik mimarisi yaklaşımının çok fazla gerçekçi olmayacağı hususunda tabii altı çizilmesi gereken başka bir husus.
ABD, Rusya, Ukrayna arasındaki özellikle son dönemdeki gelişmeleri nasıl değerlendiriyorsunuz?
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is backing up other European leaders' push to persuade President Donald Trump not to abandon Ukraine in pursuit of a peace deal in the three-year-old war with Russia during his visit to Washington Thursday. According to Associated Press, Starmer's trip is happening the same week that French President Emmanuel Macron spoke to Trump in the White House to salvage American support for Kiev. Starmer, reluctant to openly confront Trump, speaks of being a bridge between Europe and the U.S. administration. Macron has more strongly criticized Trump's recent statements that echo Russia's narrative and American moves to negotiate with Moscow while sidelining Ukraine. The dual trips to D.C. come after Macron called a crisis meeting of European leaders in Paris last week to discuss the continent's next steps, and after Trump on Friday claimed Macron and Starmer haven't done anything over the past 3 years to end the war. The centrist French leader, known for his bold diplomatic moves, says he'll seek to persuade Trump that American and European interests are the same, telling him, if you let Russia take over Ukraine, it would be unstoppable. Starmer, a cautious center-left politician, has avoided directly contradicting Trump or criticizing his actions. The UK joined the US in refusing to sign a joint declaration at an artificial intelligence summit hosted by Macron in Paris this month in what was seen as an attempt to curry favor with Washington. But the Prime Minister has reaffirmed Britain's support for Ukraine, rejecting Trump's assertion that Zelensky is a dictator and the President's suggestion that Kiev started the war, which erupted when Russia invaded its neighbor on February 24, 2022. Starmer spoke to Zelensky on Saturday, expressing the UK's ironclad support for Ukraine and commitment to securing a just and enduring peace. He said he would stress safeguarding Ukraine's sovereignty when he speaks to Trump in Washington.
The special relationship between the United States and Great Britain will be tested this week when Prime Minister Starmer makes his first visit to President Trump in Washington. A big issue is going to be the future of the war in Ukraine. Trump has signaled a radical shift in U.S. policy towards Ukraine. He's much more aligned with Russia, which invaded Ukraine 3 years ago, than his predecessor, Joe Biden, who said that the United States should stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes to beat back the invasion. Trump wants to bring a fast end to the war, and European leaders are rattled by this realignment of Washington's loyalties. Right now, we've seen a round robin of diplomacy. First, French President Emmanuel Macron visited Washington, next Prime Minister Starmer. So they're all trying to figure out how to get on the same page with Trump, given the United States' paramount role in guaranteeing European security since the days of the Cold War, and figuring out how they can all move forward at the same time.